The massive ship cut through space like a silent knife. Inside its metal walls, Commander HFY opened his 4 eyes for the first time in 500,000 years. The long sleep was over. His body felt stiff and cold, but his mind was sharp. Today was the day they would return to the small blue planet. HFY stood up slowly. His tall gray body stretched as he walked to the command center. Other members of his crew were waking up too. They moved quietly through the ship, checking systems and preparing for their arrival. "Commander," said Morden, his science officer, "we are close to the 3rd planet now, the one we marked as Primitive World in our old files." HFY nodded. He remembered that world well. 500,000 years ago, his people had found it during their first journey through this part of space. The planet was covered in green and blue. Strange creatures lived there. Most were simple animals, but there was one species that caught their attention. The creatures walked on 2 legs. They had no fur or scales. They were weak and small. They lived in caves and used simple stone tools. The Vorthak scientists had studied them for a few days. The creatures were barely smart enough to make fire. They would never become a threat to anyone. "Show me the planet," HFY said. The main screen lit up. HFY expected to see the same green and blue world from long ago. Instead, his eyes went wide with shock. The planet glowed. Bright lights covered the dark side like tiny stars. Strange patterns covered the land masses. Long lines connected different areas. Everything pulsed with artificial light. "This cannot be right," Morden whispered. "Check the readings again." The science officer's tentacles moved quickly over his control panel. Numbers and symbols flashed on smaller screens. His face grew pale. "Commander, the readings are correct. The planet is covered with structures, massive ones. Some are taller than our ships. The electromagnetic signals are incredible. Thousands of different frequencies, all organized, all purposeful." HFY felt his blood turn cold. This was impossible. The primitive creatures they had seen could never build such things. Not in 500,000 years. Not in 10 times that long. "Get us closer," he ordered. "I need to see this with my own eyes." As their ship moved toward the planet, more details became clear. The structures were not random. They formed patterns, cities, roads, massive buildings that reached toward the sky. But something was wrong. Many of the structures looked damaged. Dark spaces showed where buildings had fallen. Huge scars marked the land like wounds that would never heal. Some areas were completely black, as if great fires had burned everything away. "Commander," said Lieutenant HFY from the communications station, "I am picking up signals from the planet, many signals, but they are strange." "Strange how?" "They sound desperate, urgent, like warnings or calls for help. But they are very organized. Too organized for primitive creatures." HFY studied the planet below. What had happened here? The weak, simple creatures from 500,000 years ago could never have built these cities. But if they had not built them, who had? And why did everything look damaged? "Sir," Morden said quietly. "Look at this." He pointed to a section of the planet's surface. HFY looked closer and felt his heart skip a beat. A huge crater marked the land. It was perfectly round and hundreds of miles wide. The edges were smooth like glass. Nothing grew there, nothing lived there. "That is not from a natural disaster," HFY said. "No, sir, it is not. I count at least 50 similar craters across the planet, all the same size, all perfectly round." HFY's mind raced. Someone had attacked this world. Someone with weapons powerful enough to melt stone and glass. The primitive creatures he remembered could never have survived such an attack. Yet the signals from the planet continued. Someone was still alive down there. "Take us into the atmosphere," he ordered. "Full shields, all weapons ready." "Sir," asked Lieutenant HFY, "should we send a message to the planet? Let them know we are here?" HFY thought about this. If the planet was under attack, they might mistake his ship for an enemy. But if he sent a message, he might reveal his location to whatever had created those craters. Not yet, he decided. First, we learn what happened here. The ship entered the planet's atmosphere. HFY watched the main screen as clouds passed by. Below them, the damaged world grew larger. He could see the cities more clearly now. Many buildings stood tall and proud. Others were broken or burned. Roads connected everything in a vast network that covered entire continents. "Commander," Morden said, his voice full of fear. "These structures, they are not primitive. Look at the design, the materials, the way they connect to each other. This technology is almost as advanced as our own." Thexval felt a chill run through his body. How was this possible? 500,000 years was not enough time for such development. No species could advance so quickly, unless— "Sir, I am detecting movement on the surface," Lieutenant Kekstar reported. "Multiple contacts. They appear to be vehicles of some kind, moving toward our position." On the screen, Thexval could see them now, small objects racing across the ground. They moved in formation like a military unit. Whoever was controlling them knew the Vorthak ship was there. "They are fast," Morden observed. "Faster than our own ground vehicles." "Are they armed?" Thexval asked. "Unknown, sir, but they are definitely coming to meet us." Thexval made his decision. "Take us down. Find a clear area to land, away from the major structures. If these creatures want to meet us, we will meet them. But carefully." The ship descended toward a flat area near what looked like a damaged city. The vehicles on the ground changed direction to follow them. As they got closer, Thexval could see that the vehicles were sleek and advanced. Nothing like the primitive tools his people had observed long ago. The ship touched down with a soft thud. Through the viewing ports, Thexval could see the approaching vehicles. They stopped a safe distance away and formed a circle around the ship. Figures emerged from the vehicles. Even from far away, Thexval could see they walked on two legs. "It is them," he whispered. "The primitive creatures. But how did they build all this?" One of the figures stepped forward. It raised something in its hand, a device of some kind. Sound came from the device, clear and strong. "Welcome to Earth," the voice said in perfect Vorthak language. "We have been waiting for you." Thexval's blood froze. They had been waiting. Somehow these creatures had known the Vorthak would return, and they had learned to speak the Vorthak language. This was no longer a simple return to a primitive world. Something was very, very wrong here, and Thexval was about to discover just how wrong things had become. Thexval stood at the door of his ship. His hands shook slightly as he checked his personal shield generator one more time. Behind him, 5 of his best soldiers waited. Their weapons were ready, but set to low power. They did not want to start a fight unless they had to. "Remember," Thexval told his team, "these creatures were primitive when we last saw them. Something has changed, but we do not know what. Stay alert. Stay together." The door opened with a soft hiss. Warm air flowed into the ship. It smelled of plants and dirt, but also something else. Something metallic and sharp, like burned metal. Thexval stepped outside. The sky above was blue with white clouds, just as he remembered. But the horizon was wrong. Tall structures reached up toward the sky. Smoke rose from several points in the distance. This was not the simple world his people had catalogued long ago. The creatures stood 50 meters away. They had not moved closer, which Thexval found interesting. They were showing respect for his space. Or maybe they were being careful too. The one who had spoken stepped forward. It was taller than Thexval remembered the species being. Its body looked strong and lean. It wore some kind of uniform made from material Thexval did not recognize. Most surprising of all, it showed no fear. "I am Commander Hyunwoo of the Seoul Defense Corps," the creature said. Its voice came from a small device attached to its uniform. The device translated its words into perfect Vorthak speech. "This is Lieutenant Bora. We represent the local authority in this region." Thexval studied the two creatures carefully. Hyunwoo had scars on his face and hands, old scars from many different injuries. Bora was smaller but carried herself like a warrior. Both of them watched the Vorthak with intelligent eyes. "I am Commander Thexval of the Vorthak Exploration Fleet," he replied. "We visited this world long ago. We have returned to study your development." Hyunwoo tilted his head slightly. Study our development? How long has it been since your last visit? Approximately 500,000 of your years. Something changed in Hyunwoo's expression. His eyes grew hard and cold. Bora's hand moved closer to a weapon on her belt. 500,000 years, Hyunwoo repeated slowly. Then you were here during the first survey period. Thexval nodded. Yes. We catalogued your species as primitive but potentially intelligent. We marked this world for future observation. Primitive, Hyunwoo said. The word seemed to leave a bad taste in his mouth. Yes, we were primitive then. We lived in caves. We used stone tools. We knew nothing of the galaxy beyond our small world. That is correct, Thexval said, which makes your current development quite remarkable. How did you advance so quickly? Did another species help you? Hyunwoo and Bora looked at each other. Something passed between them, a shared knowledge that made both their faces grow grim. Oh yes, Hyunwoo said. Another species helped us. They helped us very much. The way he said it made Thexval's skin crawl. There was anger in the human's voice. And something else. Something that sounded like hatred. Who were they? Thexval asked. We called them the Kethmori, Bora said. Her voice was quiet, but sharp. They arrived about 300,000 years ago. Just like you, they thought we were primitive. Just like you, they decided to study us. Thexval felt his first real fear since landing. What happened to them? They are gone, Hyunwoo said simply. All of them. Every last one. The way he said it was calm and matter-of-fact, like he was talking about the weather. This made it more frightening than if he had shouted. Gone? Thexval asked. Where did they go? They died, Bora said. We killed them. Silence fell over the group. Thexval felt his soldiers tense behind him. These creatures had destroyed an entire alien species? That was impossible. Even now they looked small and weak compared to his people. That is difficult to believe, Thexval said carefully. Hyunwoo smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. 300,000 years ago, we would have agreed with you. We were nothing compared to the Kethmori. They had ships that could cross the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy cities. They had technology we could not even imagine. Then how could you possibly defeat them? They made a mistake, Bora said. They underestimated us, just like you are doing right now. Thexval felt sweat form on his forehead. What kind of mistake? They thought we were animals, Hyunwoo explained. Useful animals, but animals nonetheless. They decided to use us as test subjects. They introduced things into our world. Biological weapons, genetic modifications. They wanted to see how we would adapt. And you adapted, Thexval said quietly. Oh, we adapted, Hyunwoo agreed. We adapted better than they ever imagined possible. We learned from their weapons. We studied their technology. We became something they never expected. What did you become? Hyunwoo looked directly into Thexval's eyes. We became their worst nightmare. A new sound filled the air. Thexval looked up to see more vehicles approaching. These were larger than the ones that had met his ship. They moved without making any noise. As they got closer, he could see they were heavily armed. Do not be alarmed, Bora said, noticing his concern. They are just reinforcements. We always send reinforcements when unknown ships land on our world. How many reinforcements? One of Thexval's soldiers asked. Enough, Hyunwoo said. The vehicles formed a larger circle around the landing site. Dozens of humans emerged from them. All were armed. All moved with the precision of trained soldiers. All watched the Vorthak with calm, patient eyes. You said the Kethmori introduced biological weapons, Thexval said, trying to keep his voice steady. What kind of weapons? The kind that change you, Bora replied. The kind that make you stronger, faster, more adaptable. The kind that turn prey into predators. Are you still affected by these weapons? Hyunwoo and Bora exchanged another look. This time, Thexval saw something new in their expressions. Fear. Not fear of him or his soldiers, but fear of something else. Something inside themselves. Commander Thexval, Hyunwoo said formally. Before we continue this conversation, I need to ask you a very important question. What question? Are you the ones who seeded the Devourers? Thexval felt confused. I do not understand. What are Devourers? Hyunwoo's scarred face grew hard. His hand moved to his weapon. Around the circle, Thexval could hear the soft clicks of safety switches being turned off. You really do not know? Bo-Ra asked. I have never heard that term before, Thexval said honestly. Hyunwoo studied his face for a long moment. Then he slowly relaxed. His hand moved away from his weapon. Around the circle, the other humans lowered their guns slightly. Then you are not our enemies, Hyunwoo said. At least not yet. What are these Devourers? Thexval asked. That, said Hyunwoo, is a very long story, and a very horrible one. If you truly want to understand what happened to our world and what we became, you will need to see our records. You will need to learn our history. I would like that very much. Hyunwoo nodded. Then we will take you to the Soul Archive. But I must warn you, Commander. Once you learn our story, you will never see the galaxy the same way again, and you will understand why we ask every new species the same question. What question? Whether they are here to help us, Bo-Ra said quietly, or whether we need to kill them too. The wind blew across the landing site, carrying the smell of smoke and metal. In the distance, something that might have been thunder rolled across the sky. But Thexval was beginning to suspect it was not thunder at all. The Soul Archive was not what Thexval had expected. From the surface, it looked like a simple building made of metal and stone. But as they descended in a fast-moving elevator, he realized the real archive was underground. Far underground. How deep does this go? Morden asked nervously. 3 kilometers, replied Dr. Yoonji, their guide. She was older than the soldiers they had met earlier. Her hair was gray, and her face showed the lines of many years. But her eyes were sharp and intelligent. We built it deep to protect our records from surface attacks. Surface attacks? Thexval asked. You will understand soon enough, said Tamian, the other scientist with them. He was younger than Unji but carried himself with the same careful precision. The elevator stopped with a soft sound. The doors opened to reveal a vast chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were lined with machines that hummed quietly. Lights blinked in patterns Thexval did not recognize. The air smelled of electricity and cooling systems. This is our main data storage facility, Yoonji explained as they walked deeper into the complex. Everything we know about our history is stored here. Everything we learned about the galaxy. Everything we discovered about ourselves. They stopped in front of a large circular room. The walls were covered with screens of different sizes. In the center stood a device that projected images into the air. Holographic technology, Thexval realized. Advanced holographic technology. Please sit, Taemin said, gesturing to chairs that rose from the floor. Thexval and his team sat down. The chairs were comfortable and seemed to adjust to their bodies automatically. Around them, the screens began to light up with images and symbols. Before we begin, Yoonji said, I must ask you a question. How much do you know about galactic history? About the species that lived in this region before you arrived? Very little, Thexval admitted. We are explorers, not historians. We map new worlds and catalog new species. We rarely encounter advanced civilizations. Then you know nothing of the Kethmori Empire? Thexval shook his head. I have never heard that name before today. Yoonji and Taemin looked at each other, sadly. That is because they are extinct, Taemin said. Completely extinct. No trace of them remains anywhere in the galaxy. Except for their legacy, Yoonji added quietly. Their terrible legacy. The holographic projector activated. Images appeared in the air above their heads. Thexval saw star charts, ship designs, and pictures of creatures he did not recognize. The creatures were tall and thin, with multiple arms and large heads. Their technology looked advanced and elegant. The Kethmori were an old species, Yoonji began. They had been traveling the galaxy for millions of years. They were scientists and explorers, much like yourselves. But they had a different view of younger species. What kind of view? Morden asked. They saw us as laboratory animals, Timon said bitterly. Useful for experiments, but not truly intelligent. Not truly alive in any way that mattered. The images changed. Now HFY could see early humans. They looked much like the creatures his people had catalogued long ago. Small, weak, primitive. They lived in simple shelters and used basic tools. When the Kethmori first found Earth, we were exactly what you thought we were, Yunji continued. Barely intelligent primates. We had just learned to make fire. We had no writing, no complex tools, no understanding of the world beyond our immediate surroundings. But the Kethmori saw potential in us, Timon added. They decided to run an experiment. They wanted to see how quickly they could force our evolution, how far they could push our development. New images appeared. HFY saw strange machines being deployed across Earth's surface. He saw humans being captured and taken aboard alien ships. He saw laboratories filled with complex equipment. They introduced biological agents into our environment, Yunji explained. Viruses and bacteria designed to alter our genetic structure. Most of these agents were deadly. They killed 90% of our population within the first 1,000 years. But some humans survived, Timon continued. And those who survived were changed. The biological agents had modified their DNA, made them stronger, faster, more intelligent, more adaptable. The holographic display showed human settlements growing larger and more complex. HFY could see the progression over thousands of years. Simple villages became towns. Towns became cities. Cities became nations. The changes accelerated, Yunji said. Each generation was more advanced than the last. We developed language, writing, mathematics, science. In just 50,000 years, we went from using stone tools to building our first spacecraft. That is impossible, one of HFY's soldiers said. Evolution does not work that fast. Normal evolution? No. Timon agreed. But this was not normal evolution. This was forced adaptation. The Kethmori biological agents continued to modify us. They made us learn faster, think more clearly, solve problems more efficiently. But there was a price, Yunji added darkly. The modifications came with side effects, instincts we did not understand, urges we could not control. As we became more intelligent, we also became more dangerous. The images changed again. Now HFY saw wars, massive conflicts that covered entire continents, cities burning, millions of people fleeing from advancing armies. We turned on ourselves, Timon explained. The same modifications that made us intelligent also made us aggressive, territorial, competitive. We fought wars over resources, over land, over ideas. For thousands of years, we nearly destroyed ourselves over and over again. But we learned, Yunji said. Slowly, painfully, we learned to control our new instincts. We developed governments, laws, social structures that channeled our aggression into productive directions. And then the Kethmori returned, Timon said quietly. Fear. Room fell silent. The holographic images showed sleek alien ships approaching Earth. HFY could see they were much more advanced than anything the humans had built. They came back to harvest their experiment, Yunji continued. After 200,000 years, they wanted to collect the results of their work. They planned to take samples of our population back to their laboratories for further study. What happened? HFY asked, though he was beginning to suspect he knew the answer. We said no, Timon replied simply. The images now showed conflict on a scale HFY had never imagined. Space battles raged around Earth and throughout the solar system. Planets were scarred by massive weapons. Entire moons were shattered and reformed into military installations. The war lasted 50,000 years, Yunji said. The Kethmori had superior technology, but we had something they did not expect. We had desperation, and we had the modifications they had given us. What kind of modifications? Morden asked nervously. Adaptability, Timon answered. The ability to learn and change faster than any species had ever changed before. Every weapon they used against us, we studied. Every tactic they employed, we countered. Every advantage they held, we found a way to overcome. The holographic display showed human ships becoming larger and more sophisticated. HFY could see technology that rivaled anything his own people had developed. But there was something wrong with the designs, something that looked organic rather than mechanical. We did not just build better machines, Yunji explained. We became better machines. We modified ourselves further, enhanced our bodies, our minds, our very DNA. We turned ourselves into living weapons designed specifically to fight the Kethmori. And we won, Taman said. His voice was flat and emotionless. After 50,000 years of war, we hunted down every last Kethmori ship. We found every colony, every outpost, every hidden base they had built across the galaxy. We destroyed them all. Completely? HFY asked. Completely, Yunji confirmed. We made sure of that. We could not risk them returning again. We could not risk them doing to another species what they had done to us. The images faded. The room became quiet except for the soft humming of machines. HFY sat in silence, trying to process what he had learned. A primitive species had not only defeated an advanced galactic empire, they had completely destroyed it. But the victory came with a cost, Taman said finally. What cost? HFY asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Unji looked directly at him. Her eyes were sad and tired. We became monsters, Commander HFY. In order to defeat the Kethmori, we turned ourselves into something that should not exist, something that threatens every living thing in the galaxy. The Devourers, HFY whispered. Yes, Taman confirmed. The Devourers. And they are still out there. Sergeant Dong-hyun led the Vortak delegation through the ruins of what had once been a great city. The buildings around them were twisted and melted, as if exposed to incredible heat. Strange growths covered some of the structures. They looked organic, almost alive. This was once called Busan, Dong-hyun explained as they walked. 5 million people lived here before the cleansing wars. It was one of our most beautiful cities. HFY looked around at the devastation. What happened here? We happened, said Nari, the engineer walking beside them. She was young, but her eyes held the same sadness HFY had seen in all the humans he had met. This is what we did to our own world. They stopped in front of a large crater. It was similar to the ones HFY had seen from orbit, but being close to it made him realize how massive it truly was. The crater was perfectly circular, and so deep he could not see the bottom. The edges were smooth like glass. The Devourers landed here first, Dong-hyun said. 300 of them in a single pod. Within 6 hours, they had consumed everything within a 50-mile radius. Consumed? Morden asked nervously. Eaten, Nari explained simply. Buildings, vehicles, people, animals, plants, everything. They turned it all into raw materials to build more of themselves. HFY felt sick. The Devourers are a weapon? They were supposed to be, Dong-hyun replied. During the war with the Kethmori, our scientists created them as the ultimate biological weapon. They were designed to be perfect killers, unstoppable, adaptable to any environment, capable of reproducing exponentially when threatened. Nari activated a small device she carried. Holographic images appeared in the air above the crater. HFY saw creatures that made his blood freeze. They looked vaguely human, but stretched and changed into something horrible. Their bodies were covered in armor-like skin. Their limbs ended in claws that could cut through metal. Their eyes glowed with an intelligence that was both human and completely alien. The first generation of Devourers were volunteers, Nari explained. Soldiers who agreed to undergo the ultimate modification. They had their DNA completely rewritten. Their bodies were enhanced beyond anything we had ever attempted before. They could survive in the vacuum of space, Dong-hyun added. They could process any form of matter for energy. They could reproduce by converting other organisms into more Devourers. They were the perfect weapon against the Kethmori. And they worked, Nari said bitterly. They worked too well. The holographic images changed. Now Thexval could see space battles, but not the kind he had seen before. These were not ships fighting ships. These were swarms of creatures attacking massive alien vessels. The Devourers moved through space like a plague, overwhelming everything they encountered. The Kethmori had no defense against them, Donghyun explained. Their weapons could destroy individual Devourers, but there were always more. And every time they killed one, it released spores that created 10 more. The war ended quickly. After we deployed them, Nari continued. Within 1,000 years, every Kethmori ship, station, and colony had been consumed. The entire empire was gone. But the Devourers did not stop, Donghyun said quietly. The images showed the creatures spreading throughout the galaxy. They consumed empty worlds, asteroid fields, space stations. Anything they encountered became raw material for more Devourers. We realized we had made a terrible mistake, Nari said. We had created something that could not be controlled. Something that would eventually consume everything in the galaxy, including us. What did you do? Thexval asked. We declared war on ourselves, Donghyun replied. The holographic display showed new images that made Thexval's heart skip. Human fleets attacking swarms of Devourers, planets being bombarded from orbit, entire solar systems being sterilized. To prevent the spread of the creatures, the cleansing wars lasted 10,000 years, Nari explained. We hunted down every Devourer pod, every contaminated world, every trace of our own creation. We destroyed our own colonies if we had to. We sacrificed millions of our people to stop the spread. The craters you see on Earth are from our own weapons, Donghyun added. Places where Devourer pods had landed. We had to use planet-killing weapons to make sure they were completely destroyed. Thexval looked around at the ruined city with new understanding. You did this to yourselves? We had no choice, Nari said. If even one Devourer had survived, the plague would have started again. We could not take that risk. They continued walking through the ruins. Thexval noticed that some areas showed signs of new growth. Plants were growing between the broken buildings. Small animals moved in the shadows. But everything looked different somehow. Changed. The modifications are still in our DNA, Donghyun explained, noticing his observation. We carry the genetic potential to become Devourers ourselves. Every human alive today is a few genetic switches away from transforming into one of those monsters. That is impossible, one of Thexval's soldiers said. No species can carry such dangerous modifications and remain stable. You are right, Nari agreed. We are not stable. We use genetic suppressors, constant monitoring, and strict population controls to prevent accidental transformations. But the potential is always there. They reached the edge of the ruined city. Beyond it stretched a vast plain covered in strange metal structures. The structures moved slowly, like living things. What are those? Morden asked. Monitoring stations, Donghyun replied. They scan constantly for signs of Devourer activity, not just on Earth but throughout this entire region of the galaxy. Throughout the galaxy? Thexval asked in shock. We seeded the galaxy with monitoring systems during the cleansing wars, Nari explained. We had to make sure we found every trace of Devourer contamination. The network extends for thousands of light years in every direction. Thexval realized the implications of this. You have been watching us, you knew we were coming. We know about every ship that enters this region of space, Donghyun confirmed. We have to. If the Devourers ever return, we need to respond immediately. But they are extinct, Morden said hopefully. You destroyed them all. Nari and Donghyun looked at each other grimly. We destroyed all the ones we could find, Nari said carefully. But the galaxy is vast, and Devourers are very good at hiding. What do you mean? Thexval asked. During the war, some Devourer pods escaped our initial attacks, Donghyun explained. They went dormant, drifting in deep space, waiting for the right conditions to reactivate. How many? Thexval whispered. We do not know, Nari admitted. Our estimates range from dozens to thousands. They could be anywhere. They could wake up at any time. A new sound filled the air, a low, rumbling alarm that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The monitoring stations began to glow brighter. Their movements became faster, more urgent. "What is that?" Morden asked nervously. Dong Hyun pulled out a communication device. He spoke rapidly in his own language, then listened to the response. His face grew pale. "What is it?" Thexval demanded. "Long-range sensors have detected something," Nari said, reading from her own device. "A pod, drifting in deep space about 50 light-years from here. Is it active?" "Not yet," Dong Hyun replied. "But it is moving toward a populated system. If it reaches that system and reactivates..." He did not need to finish. Thexval understood. If even one devourer pod awakened near a populated world, the nightmare would begin again. "What will you do?" Thexval asked. "What we always do," Nari said grimly. "We will hunt it down and destroy it before it can wake up." "How?" "With our ships, our weapons, our people," Dong Hyun replied. "Whatever it takes." Thexval looked at the two humans with new understanding. They were not just survivors of an ancient war. They were guardians. Soldiers in an endless battle to protect the galaxy from their own creation. "This is what we became," Nari said quietly. "This is the price of our victory. We saved the galaxy from the Kethmori, but we condemned ourselves to eternal vigilance against our own monsters." In the distance, Thexval could see ships rising from hidden launch bays. They moved quickly and silently toward the stars, carrying their grim duty to another potential battleground. He was beginning to understand why the humans had asked if his people were enemies. In a galaxy where such horrors could awaken at any moment, every unknown ship was a potential threat, and every species that learned the truth had to make a choice. The deepest level of the Soul Archive was different from the others. The air here was colder and filled with a strange humming sound that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Commander Jin Ho led Thexval and his team through corridors lined with massive computers and monitoring equipment. "This is our command center," Jin Ho explained as they walked. "From here, we coordinate our watch over the entire galaxy." Dr. Su-young waited for them in a circular room at the heart of the facility. She was older than the other humans Thexval had met, with white hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of many years of worry. The walls around her were covered with screens showing star maps, sensor readings, and data streams that flowed like rivers of light. "Welcome to the real Soul Archive," Su-young said as they entered. "This is where we keep our most important secrets." "More secrets?" Morden asked nervously. "The most important ones," Jin Ho confirmed. "The ones that determine whether our species survives another day." Su-young gestured to the screens around them. "Commander Thexval, what you have learned so far is only part of our story. The cleansing wars did end. We did destroy most of the devourers. But the truth is more complicated than we told you." "More complicated how?" Thexval asked. "The cleansing wars were not entirely successful," Jin Ho said quietly. "We eliminated the active devourer populations, but we could not eliminate the potential for new ones." One of the large screens activated, showing a map of the galaxy. Thousands of small red dots were scattered across it like drops of blood. "These are confirmed devourer pod locations," Su-young explained. "Dormant containers drifting in deep space. We have tracked them for thousands of years, but we cannot reach them all." "How many?" Thexval whispered. "We estimate between 2,000 and 5,000 pods," Jin Ho replied. "Each one contains enough genetic material to restart the devourer plague if it reaches a suitable environment." "A suitable environment?" one of Thexval's soldiers asked. "Any planet with organic life," Su-young said grimly. "Any space station with a significant population. Any asteroid mining operation with enough biomass to feed the initial reproduction cycle." Thexval studied the map with growing horror. The red dots were everywhere. Some were moving slowly through empty space. Others were drifting toward populated systems. "But they are dormant," Morden said hopefully. "They cannot activate on their own." "That is correct," Jin Ho agreed. "Under normal circumstances, they remain inactive indefinitely. but certain conditions can trigger their awakening. What conditions? Electromagnetic pulses from ship engines, Su Young listed. Radio transmissions from advanced civilizations. Gravitational disturbances from large-scale construction projects. Even the wrong kind of stellar radiation can sometimes activate a pod. Which means every expanding civilization in the galaxy is a potential trigger, Jinho added. Every new species that develops space travel increases the risk of accidental activation. HFY felt a chill run through his body. Including my people. Including your people, Su Young confirmed. Your ships passed within sensor range of at least 12 dormant pods on your way to Earth. If any of them had been slightly more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. She did not need to finish. HFY could imagine the horror of devourer pods awakening in Vorthak space, consuming worlds his people had spent millennia colonizing. This is why we built the monitoring network, Jinho explained. We track every pod, every ship, every possible trigger event. When we detect a potential activation, we respond immediately. How do you respond? HFY asked. We send hunters, Su Young said simply. Another screen activated, showing ships unlike anything HFY had seen before. They were sleek and organic-looking, like living creatures made of metal and energy. These are our hunter ships, Jinho explained, specially designed to track and destroy devourer pods. Each one is crewed by volunteers who have undergone special modifications. What kind of modifications? Morden asked nervously. Su Young and Jinho looked at each other. Something passed between them, a shared knowledge that seemed to weigh heavily on both their minds. To hunt devourers effectively, Su Young said slowly, our hunters must be able to think like devourers. They must be able to track them through space, predict their behavior, understand their instincts. Which means, Jinho continued, they must carry active devourer genetic sequences in their own DNA. HFY felt his blood freeze. You deliberately turn your people into devourers? Partially, Su Young corrected. We activate just enough of the modification to give them the necessary abilities. Enhanced reflexes, improved spatial awareness, the ability to survive in hostile environments. But we maintain strict genetic controls to prevent full transformation. That sounds incredibly dangerous, one of HFY's soldiers said. It is, Jinho agreed. Hunter duty has a 90% casualty rate, not from external threats, but from genetic breakdown. Most hunters die within 5 years as their modifications consume their original DNA. But without them, we would have no defense against awakening pods, Su Young added. They are our early warning system and our only effective weapon against the devourer threat. A new alarm began to sound. It was different from the one they had heard earlier, more urgent and sharp. Red lights began flashing throughout the command. Center, status report, Jinho called out. A technician at one of the monitoring stations responded quickly. Long-range sensors detecting massive activation event in Sector 47. Multiple pods awakening simultaneously. Su Young's face went pale. How many? At least 30 confirmed. Possibly more. Jinho was already moving toward the communication systems. Alert all hunter fleets, prepare for Code Black response. What is Code Black? HFY asked. Sterilization protocol, Su Young replied grimly. If we cannot contain the activation, we destroy everything in the affected sector. Planets, stations, ships, everything. But that would kill millions of innocent people, Morden protested. Better millions dead than the entire galaxy consumed, Jinho said without hesitation. This is the choice we face every time. Save a few and risk losing everything, or sacrifice the few to protect the many. On the screens around them, HFY could see hunter ships launching from hidden bases throughout human space. They moved with deadly purpose toward the threatened sector. Commander HFY, Su Young said, there is something else you need to understand. About us. About what we really are. What do you mean? The humans you have met, the ones living. On Earth's surface, they are not like us, Jinho explained. They are the normal population. The civilians. The ones who carry dormant devourer genes but live relatively normal lives. But we are different, Su Young continued. Everyone in this facility, everyone involved in the monitoring program, everyone who serves on hunter ships. We carry active genetic modifications. Thexval felt the room grow colder. Active modifications? We are part devourer, Jinho said quietly. Controlled, suppressed, but still fundamentally changed from baseline humanity. We have enhanced intelligence, extended lifespans, and abilities that normal humans do not possess. We are the Watchers, Su-young added, the guardians who stand between the galaxy and annihilation. But we are also the thing we guard against. How? Many of you are there? Thexval asked. About 50 million, Jinho replied. Spread across this entire region of the galaxy. We live in hidden bases, monitoring stations, and hunter ships. Most of the galaxy does not know we exist. And if your genetic suppressors fail, then we become the thing we have spent millennia fighting, Su-young said. We become devourers. Ourselves, a new voice spoke from the communication system. Command, this is Hunter Fleet 7. We have reached Sector 47. The situation is worse than expected. Report, Jinho ordered. The awakened pods have already consumed 2 asteroid mining stations. We count approximately 200 active devourers, and the number is growing exponentially. Recommend immediate sterilization. Jinho looked at Su-young. She nodded grimly. Authorization granted, Jinho said. Sterilize the sector. Understood. Beginning bombardment now. On the screens, Thexval watched as human ships fired weapons of incredible power into space. Entire asteroids were vaporized. The very fabric of space seemed to burn. Sector sterilization complete, the voice reported. All devourer activity eliminated. Casualty count, 17,000 miners and support staff. The room fell silent except for the humming of machines. Thexval realized he had just watched the casual destruction of 17,000 lives to prevent something worse. This is what we do, Su-young said quietly. This is what we have become. We are the monsters who protect the galaxy from monsters. We are the killers who prevent greater killing. And every day, Jinho added, we face the possibility that we might lose control of ourselves, that we might become the very thing we fight against. Thexval looked around at the humans in the command center. Now he could see it. The way they moved with predatory grace. The way their eyes seemed to see too much. The way they spoke of mass destruction as if it were a routine task. They were not quite human anymore. But they were not quite devourers, either. They existed in the space between, holding back the darkness through sheer force of will. Commander Thexval, Su-young said, now you know our greatest secret.